The international contractor branch of the worker layer runs on different forms, different reporting rules, and different withholding mechanics from the US branch, and the discipline at onboarding is identical. Collect the form before first payment, file it in your records, use it as documentation of the position. The bifurcation lives in the template. A US hire goes through the W-9 branch. A non-US hire goes through the W-8BEN branch. If your onboarding template has only the US branch built in, every international contractor is going through it by improvisation, which is where errors enter. And the errors in this lane include 30% default withholding the IRS expects you to have applied. A non-US contractor does not get a W-9 and does not get a 1099 NEC, full stop on that one. If you have been issuing 1099 NECs to contractors in other countries, the practice stops this cycle. Different form, different rule, different withholding mechanics. The W-9 is a US person form, and the 1099 NEC is a US person reporting form. A foreign contractor with valid documentation sits outside both of those systems. The compliance work for international contractors runs on the W-8BEN family of forms, and in the cases where it activates, on the Form 1042 reporting workflow, both of which look nothing like the US contractor compliance cycle. The form mapping is straightforward once the three documents sit next to each other. W-9 is for US persons, US citizens, US tax residents, US formed entities. W-8BEN is the Certificate of Foreign Status for non-US individual contractors. W-8BEN-E is the entity version for foreign companies. All three are collected before the first payment is released. All three sit in your contractor file, not the IRS. All three carry the standard 7-year retention. The only thing that changes between them is which contractor gets which form. And the contractor's residency status answers that question at onboarding. The No-1099 NEC rule for foreign contractors is structural, not a paperwork shortcut. The 1099 NEC is a US tax reporting form for payments to US persons. A non-US contractor with a valid W-8BEN on file is, by the definition the form establishes, a foreign person for US tax purposes. You are not filing through the 1099 system about this payment at all. The W-8BEN is the documentation that you are correct not to issue a 1099 NEC, which is why the form has to be in the file before the first payment goes out, and why mid-cycle retrofit on international contractors is just as important as on US contractors. The default withholding rule on payments to foreign contractors carries a 30% rate, and the two exceptions are where most coaching arrangements land. Under the Internal Revenue Code, payments to foreign contractors for services performed in the US are subject to 30% withholding. You are the withholding agent. You withhold 30% at payment, remit through Form 1042, and issue Form 1042-S to the contractor at year end. The mechanics are real, and the penalties for failing to withhold when withholding was required are real. The exceptions for typical coaching arrangements are also real, and they are what eliminates the withholding obligation in almost every case a coaching practice will see. Exception 1. Services performed entirely outside the US covers almost every coaching practice's international contractor arrangements by default. The remote VA in Manila working from Manila. The European coach delivering sessions from her home in Madrid. The admin support contractor in Buenos Aires handling scheduling from Buenos Aires. None of those services have US source income characterization under the relevant tax treaty because the work is happening physically outside the US. No US withholding is required. The W-8BEN sits in the file as documentation of the position, along with a one-line note in your records confirming where the services are performed. Exception 2, the tax treaty claim, covers the situation where services have U.S. source characterization, but the contractor's home country treaty reduces or eliminates the withholding. Most U.S. tax treaties with European countries and many with countries in Latin America and Asia reduce the withholding rate on professional services fees to 0, where the contractor has no U.S. permanent establishment. The contractor claims the treaty position directly on the W-8BEN, including the treaty article number on the form. You honor the claim at payment. The treaty position is the contractor's representation. Honoring it correctly is your obligation as the withholding agent. A coach hiring a VA in Spain runs the international workflow end-to-end as a worked example of what this looks like in practice. The VA provides a completed W-8BEN claiming the Spain-US treaty position, professional services category, no U.S. permanent establishment, all work performed in Spain. The coach files the W-8BEN in the contractor folder. Payments go out monthly in euros through WISE. No 1099 NEC is issued at year end. No withholding is applied at any payment. No Form 1042 is filed. The W-8BEN documents every position. The year-end record entry is one line. International contractor services in Spain, W-8BEN on file, treaty position claimed, end of compliance obligation. Bifurcate the onboarding template into a U.S. branch and a non-U.S. branch from day one. U.S. contractor gets the W-9 attachment, the standard contractor agreement, the standard payment terms. Non-U.S. contractor gets the W-8BEN attachment, the agreement, the payment terms, and the one-line note in the file documenting where the services are performed. Different forms, identical discipline. Collect before first payment, file in your records, retain for 7 years. The bifurcation lives in the onboarding template. Build it once. Route every hire through the correct branch from the start.